Hello, and welcome to TA Intel, a podcast about the business of small business support. Each episode of TA Intel offers practical insights on leadership and professional development for the people who run and deliver services and entrepreneurial support programs. I'm your host, Christian Conroy. I have over 30 years of experience leading organizations that enable small businesses to start, grow, survive, and thrive. I provide leadership and strategic support to economic development and educational organizations across the country. I'm joined today by Tiffany Ford. Tiffany is the State Director of the North Dakota SBDC. In this episode, we will be discussing the recent accreditation review of the North Dakota SBDC. Let's hear from Tiffany. Hello. In this episode, we're going to be talking with Tiffany Ford. Tiffany is the State Director of the North Dakota SBDC, and Tiffany is joining us to talk about her experience, her recent experience, with the accreditation review of the North Dakota SBDC network that occurred in 2025. Before we get started, Tiffany, maybe if you could just give us a little bit of background on both your program as well as some of the details about the review, like when was it, who was on the team, how long did it take, just a couple of quick things like that.
Sure. The North Dakota SBDC is hosted at the University of North Dakota in the Nistler College of Business and Public Administration. This year, 2026, is actually our 40th anniversary year, so we're excited about that. It's been at the same host for all 40 years, so the university is also quite pleased. We have a network that is combined University of North Dakota staff and contracted centers. We're about a half and half split, and we have 7 physical locations across the state. I have a lead center team of 4. It's myself, my associate state director that's responsible mostly for operations, finance, and compliance. I have a new assistant state director who has been in her role for about a year and a half. Oh, I'm sorry, almost 2 years now. And she is responsible for program development and staff development. And then I also have a communications manager. Our accreditation review happened in May of 2025. And it took a full week, and we received our report back in the fall after the training event conference in September.
Okay, great. Who was on your accreditation team?
Our team was Linda Rossi from Vermont. She was our lead, and Mike Daniels from Orange County.
Oh, great, good. So if I'm correct, you've been state director now for 5 years, is that right?
This is my 6th year, as state director.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was the associate state director for 5 years. Prior to that, I lived in central administration in sponsored projects. So I came with that experience and knowledge into the SBDC, which is very helpful.
Yes, yeah, no, that is a very good background, considering all of the compliance requirements we struggle with. So I was going to say this. So this really was your first review as state director, but you'd been through the accreditation review previously, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I participated in the previous accreditation review when I was associate state director, and then I actually started as associate state director like a month after we got our report from the accreditation review that happened that year before. So I was really most of my time in my first year was spent working on conditions, and we had 18.
Can you have that many? There's only 21 standards.
We had 18 conditions when I became associate state director, and I was given the report on my 2nd day on the job.
Okay, well, you are really well steeped in accreditation then. I have to say the truth, I was not aware of all of that background. So this actually should be a kind of an interesting conversation. And I would assume actually that, this time being essentially almost like your 3rd time going through it, since, you started with the report from the previous one, that hopefully everything went a lot smoother.
We had a great review. We had a lot of back and forth with our team prior to, so planning logistics and the way they wanted to see it. We have a large, very rural state. So there's a lot of windshield time between centers. So we had quite a bit of coordination to do. But yes, it It went very well, and there were a lot of things that I took from it that I would probably repeat again, just because I really liked the way it was structured.
All right, good. Actually, so we'll get into that in just a little bit, but just to in thinking about kind of the flow of how this process works, maybe if we could,
Mhm.
kind of follow that same pattern. So, where we begin this whole process is once the team has been announced, you have a review coming up, is you put together the self-study. And, can you just talk a little bit about what your process has been about how you've put the self-study together?
Mhm. Yep, we actually take quite a bit of time to prepare a self-study, and we start long before we're given our team. Um, because it's every 5 years, it's something that we do continue to have in front of us at all times. We align a lot of our normal operations, our policy and procedure structuring, our formatting, kind of what we call some priorities within our strategic plan. They all tend to align with accreditation standards so that we're just always thinking about it. But our process for writing the self-study actually starts with one of our quarterly all-network meetings. And we provide the self-study outline to all of the staff. We block off, it's usually about half a day because it does take that long. And we ask the staff around a table to go through every single standard and just give us bullets on what they are doing in their daily work or their normal routines that would hit this standard. So what's one thing that you do to gauge how your clients are, how well satisfied your clients are with the work that you do, right? So we're trying to keep top of mind all of the activities that we do in our day-to-day that meet the accreditation standards. So that's really the first step, is to get the whole team around the table, and we ask them to give us the preliminary bullets for each standard. After we do that, the lead center team convenes and we break out all of the sections. So whoever kind of leads that effort within the network takes that section and starts to pull the bullets together into cohesive thought and fill in any gaps that we know from our strategy or our leadership perspective. And then we meet continuously again to refine each of those sections, to create it in one voice, to make sure that we have all the attachments in the right places. And so it really is an iterative process, but it does take us probably about, I would say it's a good 9 months for us to do everything because we're starting with input from the staff.
No, yeah, I think that's actually a great process. I'm glad that you shared the details of that. I particularly like how you involve everybody in this as a way to, help them really kind of get a better understanding of what the standards are by asking them just for those bullet points in that initial meeting. Uh,
Mhm.
and as you point out, I mean, it's a big undertaking, and to dedicate the amount of upfront time, it makes it easier. I mean, 9 months sounds like a really long time, and it is a long time, and it is a lot of work. But when you break it down into little pieces over that time period, it's doable.
Yes. Hmm.
Is there anything that learned from doing it this time that you might change, or you found worked particularly well that you want to build on next time?
I don't think that there's anything different this time. We did it the same way for the second to last accreditation that we had, and that's why I
Okay.
repeated it this time. It's just a really great way to kind of kick it off. Our process of even reviewing the self-study after that is just as intense. And so just that first meeting with the staff to get their input, get their thoughts about what this looks like, um, that's probably, I mean, could we do it without them? We could.
Right.
But that's not the point. The point is to get them starting to think about the process, knowing the timeline, knowing the kinds of information that we're going to be digging into so that they make sure that they know each point, and are prepared for the review.
Yeah, I mean, I like this too because I mean, you're helping to assure that the whole team speaks with one voice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're really going to have a lot more consistency, I think, in terms of the interaction that your team has with the review team.
Yeah, and that takes a lot more than a half day in a quarterly meeting.
Right, right. Okay. So you put all this work into the self-study.
Mhm.
What was your sense when you were interacting with the team? Do you feel that they read it and that they were, up to speed on everything?
Yes, I was really actually quite impressed with the team. I did not make any changes to the team that was suggested to us. I knew Linda well. I really didn't know Mike very well. And I was a little concerned that maybe he wouldn't have quite as much perspective of a really small rural state coming from a region in California, and a region with a lot of consultants and contractors, which is not our structure at all. But they read that report through and through, I'm sure more than once. We had some great discussions before their visit about a couple of things that they had some preliminary questions on. And then when we were in conversations during the review, yes, they brought up what we had written often. So it was very clear that they knew that self-study in and out. And they had reviewed all the attachments too. And we send a lot of attachments.
Okay. All right. So they didn't request any additional information beyond what you provided.
No.
Okay. All right. And so when they were on site and meeting with you and the rest of the North Dakota SBDC team, were there certain topics that they were particularly focused on? Do you feel?
Yes, the one topic they seemed to sit in the most was our surveys, our client surveys.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We've changed those over the years. Surveys, I mean, people's interest in completing surveys over time has shifted since COVID. And so we don't find that what we get from our surveys is terribly helpful. We have a process to review them. Our staff know when they get a response. I mean, we've got all the things in place, but the staff struggled with communicating the benefit of having those surveys, which I understand. I have probably a hard time communicating the benefit of some of our client surveys sometimes. But it feels kind of like a check the box item.
Mm-hmm.
We do use the information, so I'm not going to say that we don't, because we do and we review it. But there's what came of the conversations was that maybe there are some revisions we could make or a different survey we could send depending on the target audience for that survey that would give us more useful information. And it wasn't a condition, it was just a recommendation. And I completely agree with it. And right now we're actually looking at what we can do to get better information out of our clients who are at different stages in the process or different types of projects. So
did you discuss with them other ways of collecting, feedback and perspective from the clients that you serve other than just a survey?
I mean, we are a small network and we do spend a lot of time with clients. So I know the staff went into detail about ways that they engage beyond just the survey instrument. We also have a number of touch points for follow-ups and automated messaging and feedback loops other than just the client satisfaction survey. So I think all in all, when you look at the big picture, we're hitting the mark.
Right. Right. That was what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What did your team think of the review?
Our team was pleasantly surprised. I mean, Linda and Mike together are quite the pair. Linda is so nice. She's so, I mean, there's nothing that comes from Linda that makes you scared. She's just that person who enters the room and all of a sudden you feel just very comfortable. And Mike, although he comes and presents, very differently at first impression, he's quite comical and funny and pretty laid back. And so the meetings were more comfortable for the staff than I think what they expected. We did a lot of prep. Every single monthly staff meeting that we had, we took a standard and dug in. And again, just like we had done the first time putting the accreditation standards in front of them when we started writing the self-study, they got a section at a time, and every monthly staff meeting, we went through an entire section of the strategic or of the self-study to help them prepare. So one, they were surprised that it wasn't as intimidating as they thought it would be, which was great. And the team helped with that, certainly. Two, so many of them struggled during prep because we were spending a lot of our time together just talking about standards and talking about our activities that met the standard. But after each one of the meetings, each one of the staff said in passing, I'm actually really glad that we prepared as much as we did, because that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, because we had prepared. And so I think those were the two things that surprised them the most. They weren't nearly as intimidated by the review team as they thought they would be, and they were really glad that they had prepared as much as we had, even though they, in the moment, they were probably frustrated with how much time we were spending on it.
Okay. All right. Well, it's funny. I think that first point, I was, when I was the director of a network, I was there for the review, and afterwards, the SBDC team said to me, they were like, "That was great. Can they come back?" So, I mean, I think it's important as the leader of the program to help your team feel comfortable about, having open conversations with the review team, because I mean, the whole intention here is to help, share information and best practices to help your program that's being reviewed become stronger and better. And actually, along those lines, I think, especially based on your previous experience with the accreditation process, did you approach this using, seeing this as an opportunity to address some challenges that you might have, or, strategic priorities? Did you leverage the team in any way to help move your program forward?
This year, we didn't have as much of that concern as we've had in previous accreditation reviews. So our strategic plan that we have in place right now is pretty that we just completed, at the end of December, was pretty comprehensive, and the network felt like we were moving in a really good direction. Strong performance, strong strategy, good connection, good culture. So I didn't feel like there were a lot of things that we needed to address in this one. But in our previous accreditation review, we did capitalize on that opportunity to have some conversations, because we had some disparity in structure between some of our centers, where we felt like, maybe there were too many staff people, or that wasn't quite the right breakdown of who was in the program in our contracted centers. We did use that review, that was 6 years ago now, to get some feedback and some recommendations as to how we could structure and be more consistent in our staffing across the state. And then we did implement on that after the fact.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like things went pretty much the way you were expecting. Is that fair? I mean, were there any surprises that you encountered?
That's fair. No, we did not have any major surprises. And I think when you're in the accreditation study, you hear what people are saying. As a state director, because you can't say anything in the room, you're still taking notes and you're still writing exclamation points because your staff said something and you're thinking, what are they thinking? That is not right. And they know better. And that happens in every single staff meeting. So there's always those little surprises where you think, gosh, they know that. What is wrong with them? But those were nothing major. And then the windshield time with the team in the car from one meeting to the next. I mean, that's always such a great opportunity to dig a little deeper, ask some more questions, get clarification on what they're thinking, correct some of the errors that the staff might have mentioned, but saying, yeah, we realize that wasn't quite right, but they know what they're doing, and here's an example of why they know what they're doing. So I felt like we were able to get in front of that, and then we were also able to clarify some things where maybe we were surprised in the staff meetings when we had the team in the car on the way to wherever we were heading next. So,
okay. All right. Well, you have 4 more years before your next review, but based on your experience with the past 2, any things that you might do differently in the future?
So one thing we did do differently this year was actually have group meetings with the review team. Our previous accreditation review was a lot of one-on-ones. So it was the team and one staff person, the team and one staff person. This time when we came to a center, it was a group of staff, partly because it's hard to get to all the centers in our state. It's just too far to travel. So we did have staff come in, but instead of scheduling them each their own individual block, they just had a group meeting with the team. And I like that a lot. I think that made the staff a lot more comfortable. I think that helped their responses be more well-rounded. They could feed off of each other. They could kind of fill in a gap where someone had left off. So that was something different that we did this time that I would absolutely do again. And in terms of all the rest of the meetings, no, it went very well. We had great stakeholders involved, really good conversations. Everything just felt like a conversation. It's not a test. Even some of our advisory board members thought, wow, that was actually really okay. Like, I was a little worried about what they were going to ask me, but that was really fun. I enjoyed meeting them. So I think I would do it the exact same way all over again if I had to.
Okay, good. All right. Well, as you know, there's three major components. So the first piece is, writing the self-study. The second piece is the on-site review. And then the third piece is the report. What did you think of the report that you got back?
Well, we're very happy to have 0 conditions and 1 commendation. So the report is great. There is a recommendation on every standard.
Okay.
And we knew that. We knew that on the last day of the review when we did go through the preliminary report that every single standard would at least have a recommendation. Because our network right now and what we're doing is very strong, we are looking for ways to take the next steps and improve whatever it is that we are already doing well. And so I value the recommendations that they gave to us. We've already spent a couple of meetings, the leadership team and I, looking at those recommendations, figuring out some potentially low-hanging fruit that we could implement right away, some things that will take maybe a little bit more time. We've also looked at some and thought, I don't know that we're really going to do that. I don't know if that's the direction we really want to go. But none of them were conditions, and so there really isn't any follow-up or checking the box that we feel like we need to do. So we're very happy with the report and really happy with the recommendations. And for the most part, the recommendations are really relevant because they're built off of the conversations that we had with the team, especially in the car. Well, have you ever thought about doing this, or have you thought about doing that? And some of those ended up as recommendations in our report, which made it nice to refer back to and be able to think about how we could implement those.
All right, good. Well, that's great to hear, because as I said a moment ago, that's the whole intention of this process, right? Is to help you as the leader identify ways that you can build and strengthen the program that you have.
Mm-hmm.
That's I'm glad to hear that the whole process, pretty much from start to end, really has really worked out well for the North Dakota SBDC. Any based on these conversations, any 1 or 2 key takeaways that you'd like to share with peers and colleagues who might be listening to this to help them be prepared or feel comfortable about an upcoming review?
So I think that although it feels daunting and it feels like a lot of work, if you commit and you feel like you've done a good job, you've likely done a good job. I think that the team will look at your report, and if you've completed it, to the best of your abilities, it probably is well done. It does take more time than you think, and it's really nice to have a team helping you put it together, because when you put it together as a single person, that's a lot of work. And it's nice to be able to fill in the gaps that you might be missing, because there are things that I don't do every day that other people in my team do every day that need a place in the self-study. And so if I've missed that, I've missed a major component of our operations that's really important. I think one thing that I didn't mention that sits kind of outside of the review itself, but is maybe, I don't know if I'd call it a best practice, but we see it as a best practice in our network. We use the self-study in onboarding. So the self-study is a document that new employees get when they join our network, because it's like your Bible. It's your everyday. It hits on every part of what they will encounter. It talks about their work with clients. It talks about their work with stakeholders. It talks about our expectations of what that should be. It talks about the tools they use and the forms they'll need and how they're used and when they're used. So I would just say, if anybody is kind of thinking, oh, this is, a great document that's like 40 pages long and I use it once every 5 years, we use ours in onboarding to train new staff. So if it's at all useful to somebody else to take a look at that and write that self-study thinking, how complete can I make this so that it's usable in a different space? That's one of the ways that we use our self-study.
I couldn't agree with that more, Tiffany. I mean, if you're going to put in all that time and effort, make it useful across a variety of different dimensions. I've also found it's a great resource when you need data, maybe to respond to a stakeholder, or you're putting together a grant application or something. And you can go there, and you've got a baseline to begin your work. Yeah, so I think that's a great recommendation. Well, thank you. I think this has been a terrific conversation, and I think that you've shared a lot of great insights and helpful ideas that hopefully others can consider and might be helpful to them as they're preparing for an accreditation review. And I hope, if you don't mind, if others may reach out to you to learn a little bit more about what your experience has been. So thank you again for joining us, Tiffany.
Thanks, Christian.
Thank you for joining us. We would appreciate it if you could do 3 things. 1, subscribe to this podcast, TA Intel. 2, share this podcast with your colleagues. And 3, leave us a comment on what you would like us to cover in future episodes. We hope you will join us again in other podcasts at TA Intel. And before we go, here's a quick overview of the Ascend Accreditation Accelerator, which can help you ace accreditation.
Welcome to the Ascend Accreditation Accelerator. This program is designed to help you streamline your accreditation process. The purpose of the Ascend program is to ensure you are fully prepared for accreditation. We will help you assemble the necessary documentation and understand the standards. Through Ascend, you will receive tools for development, management, and benchmarking. You will also get samples, interview exposure, and an assessment tool for your program's operations. The program includes 7 on-demand webinars detailing the Ascend model process. It also features 6 live peer learning sessions on Wednesdays. Ascend provides 3 key tools and essential resources to demonstrate meeting the standards. A key item is the Accreditation Documentation Tool. This helps manage the materials to include in the self-study. The program also includes a benchmarking tool with charts and data to compare your performance against peers. You will use the Ascend Key Components Assessment to review strategic thinking, planning, and program results for learning and improvement. You will learn from veteran SBDC leaders with real-world experience, who will share proven and tailored approaches to manage your program and achieve accreditation. Registration for the 2026 Ascend Accreditation Accelerator cohort is now open. Be sure to register before the deadline on August 7th. You can find more details and registration information at www.taadvisors.org/courses. For more information on the Ascend Accreditation Accelerator or any of our services, please contact Christian Conroy.
TA Intel is a production of TA Advisors, LLC. Copyright 2026, all rights reserved. For more information, visit taadvisors.org.